Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Hello, everyone.
Holmes was born.
Hello. Hello. How are you? I'm gonna hopefully not yell at you too loud. I just remembered last week I was yelling hard because we had Zoe Quinn on the show last week. This is Sup Holmes, by the way. It's a talk show for video game developers. And one of the first questions last week with Zoe Quinn, creator of Super Street Fire, and It's Not Okay Cupid. She was great. Listen to that show if you have a chance. But last week, this guy Damian came in and immediately started asking us questions. It was awesome. What an awesome guy he was. And guess what? Now he's on the show.
Yep.
That's how the show works. You ask me enough questions, just be on it instead of just asking them. Just be on the show. And then other people ask you questions.
Yeah.
Right, Damian?
Yep, total reversal here.
Yeah, that's exciting. Thank you for asking questions and being on the show now this week.
Yeah,
What a
well,
hoot.
yeah, I'm good friends with Zoe, so I don't know.
Yeah, and she's probably watching you now. It's this creepy kind of mirror in a mirror thing. But you are a video game developer too. And are you also from Toronto, like Zoe is?
Yeah, well, actually, Zoe was born in actually I don't know where she was born, but I know she's from New York. I'm like born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah. There's a big Toronto game scene. People are saying that this the show Sup Holmes I do is just turning into the Toronto game scene, the show. Because you've been on, Zoe's been on, Miguel has been on, Miguel Sandberg, developer of They Bleed Pixels. What do you think it is about Toronto? I asked Zoe this, but I want to know from you too. What is it about Toronto that's got so many prolific, well-known video game developers coming out of there?
So, I'm pretty sure Miguel said almost this exact wording, but what basically happened is there were no big studios in Toronto for a long time. So everybody who wanted to make video games in Toronto would either move out to like Montreal or Vancouver, or like a little south, St. Catharines, or they would do it on their own. They wouldn't need that, or they would try to make their own way without any like big studio sort of like helping them along. And so now there's just so many people here who have the talent and have the experience being indie already that it's still what we do. I mean, Ubisoft just opened up, and they're great, but still the indie scene is still like very strong here.
Yeah, it seems bigger there than in other cities. I'm here in Boston, and there's a small indie scene, but it's not like Toronto's. And even New York City, it doesn't have that same. There's a lot of great developers from New York City, but in terms of the community that you have in Toronto, there seems to be something special about it. I don't know.
My friends and I have talked about this, and it's like this. It's a very large community, but we're all so tight knit. We're all very good friends with each other. So it's a weird, and really nice. I mean, I grew up not really sharing many interests with any of my peers, and then to suddenly stumble into this is amazing because now everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody enjoys similar things that I do, and I never really experienced that growing up. So
yeah, that's fantastic. It seems like such a rare treat. I'm jealous of you. I was jealous of Miguel, and I was jealous of Zoe. Now I'm jealous of you. And how did you get into developing video games? Let's start from the beginning. Who are you, and what are you doing, and when did you start doing it?
I started making games when I was like 10. I got a program called Games Factory, and I just got the trial version, and I had it for a month. And I got it when I was sick, like home from school. And I was bored, so I just started like Googling like how to make games, and then that came up, and I started making really, really simple stuff. And like the first game I remember making was called like Blob Wars 2, which means there was a Blob Wars 1. I just don't remember making it. And so I would make like over the course of what would be a school day, like being sick, I would make an entire little like collection of games. And so I guess from an early age, I figured out small scope is better because you get a lot more little things out of it. Um, and then I stopped making games. Like I tinkered with RPG Maker a bit in my teens, and I didn't really know what I was doing. Like growing up, like I had no idea what I wanted to be. And then
So
eventually,
around what age is this? The stopping
oh,
making games and the RPG Maker tinkering.
like tinkering is like 13 through to like 16. I would like spend like a week starting like some stupid, horribly cliche story, and then throwing it out because I didn't think it was good, and like getting distracted with other stuff, and then maybe like a year later try again, sort of thing. And so nothing was coming out of that. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do like when I grew up. So I just ended up going for university. I started going to for political science, and something weird happened when I was in school for political science. First off, I didn't care about anything they were teaching me. Second off, I was making games in their like during lectures. I would just be making games, and so like there is something horribly wrong here.
Like with your laptop, you were just like doing code while they were talking about Noam Chomsky and stuff like that?
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. Actually, the whole game starting to make games again thing started when I played Braid. I played Braid, and I was like, this was mostly one guy. Like David Hellman did the art, but like the game is mostly from the mind of John Blow. This is mostly one guy making this like. The game blew my mind. I was thinking about it for months afterwards. Specifically the ending, just like, anyway, I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
It's okay. It's been out for like 4 years. You can tell us all about it.
No, I don't want to spoil the ending, but like it just blew my mind. And then so I sort of like revered John Blow after that and started making games again. And then yeah, so that bled into my my schoolwork, and so I ended up dropping out. And then I got like picked up by like a bank like I was working at a bank, and it was the most mind-numbing stuff. And so then I stumbled into the indie community, and I've started making these games, and people said I was good, so I was like, okay, and I saved up money from the bank job, and now I'm indie.
Awesome. Yeah. So it went making games preteen, and then getting disillusioned with the quality of your own games, to college, to Jonathan Blow, who very controversial man, but he'll be happy to hear that he's had such a positive influence on you, to dropping out of college because of Jonathan Blow, in part, and then the indie scene kind of lifting you up, rescuing you, and now you're here. Soon to be world famous video game developer. That's pretty awesome.
I wouldn't say world famous, but maybe a little bit of like.
Well, you've made a few games already. You've made a game with Craig from Super Brothers. Mm-hmm. That was iPilot. Is that right?
Yep, iPilot. Okay, so iPilot was interesting. So. The Toronto International Film Festival, this is going to tie in a minute, they have this thing called TIFF Nexus, and what it is they're trying to get like a bunch of new media, like help sponsor new media creation and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So for some reason, or I guess because games is still pretty relatively new medium, they hooked up with the Hand-Eye Society, which is the Toronto like independent games collective, and so I got drafted in with a bunch of other people into this thing called the Peripherals Initiative. And what the Peripherals Initiative was they took a bunch of hardware people who were good with like hacking together really interesting like contraptions that did different things. Like there was one guy who like built this robot thing that would like move on its own, like in a snake-like way, and like would react to touch and stuff. That was really cool. But so they got all these interesting and like talented hardware people, and then they drafted us game developer people into like making a game with an interesting peripheral. So Craig was another person who was drafted in. Craig of Super Brothers,
Who
representative.
did Sword and Sorcery, and he's a kind of a well-known pixel artist. Just his style alone is really
Yeah.
pretty big.
So he had an old game prototype that was just like a little ship flying around. And he's like, wouldn't it be cool if you could fly that ship with your eye? And I was like, that is awesome. And so I wanted to be right in that project. So we teamed up with these people called Drawing with Frames who were already working on this eye stuff, and we made a game that you pilot around a ship in a really relaxing atmosphere just by looking around at different things, and your ship will just sort of steer like.
So it tracks your eye?
Yeah.
Instead of your eye tracking the screen tracks what your eyeball was doing?
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you do that?
How it worked was we had a pair of glasses that you had to put on, and the glasses. Actually, in the final version, we had this pilot's helmet that you put on, and you had this sort of thing. It was a webcam sort of hooked up right here, so you would be looking around. You weren't really allowed to move your head, so you'd be looking around just with your retina, and it would track where your retina was. Or iris, or pupil.
Just the whole eyeball area.
Yeah, just the whole eyeball.
How did it do that? How does it know what an eyeball is?
It was software, open source software that we were using called Gaze Tracker that you can download.
Huh.
And it even can use this webcam that I have right here, or your webcam or whatever.
Really?
It's not the best thing ever. We have a lot of little technical issues with it, but overall, the game worked. And a lot of people said it was pretty nifty.
So that was for TIFF Nexus and the Hand-Eye
Society
Agency?
Sorry.
Who are the Hand-Eye people? I thought it was going to be like a benefit for handicapped folks or something.
Oh, no. The Hand-Eye Society is just sort of, it started 6 or 7 years ago now. And it's sort of just the name given for the independent games collective in Toronto.
Hands-Eye Society.
The Hand-Eye Society, yeah.
Wow, that's so cryptic, like the skulls.
Yeah,
something.
It sounds like it. We're so welcoming. We have events. They've kind of tapered off now because there's so many other events in Toronto now, games related, that the Hand-Eye Society just kind of attaches their names to them. But the Hand-Eye Society used to run a bunch of events, and everybody was welcome. That's where I started to meet everybody.
How many people are in the society, if you had to guess?
Official members, probably a couple hundred, 200.
Wow, that's amazing.
But a lot of people come out. I don't know.
More than that, huh? It's great the way these kinds of things are slowly upswelling all over the place. And I don't know if you've been to the Penny Arcade Expo, but that's giving people a little bit of a taste of what it's really like to physically hang around with other people that are interested in video games, which is something that used to be pretty commonplace back when video game arcades were normal and around. When they died, it just went to online interactions, and slowly these physical interactions are starting to pop up everywhere. It's really exciting to see that. But we were talking about iPilot before. I was wondering, what do you think makes a game with some would say, gimmicky control scheme like that work? Because there's a lot of that's a big movement right now in mainstream gaming. How do you do an alternative form of control that kind of grabs everyone and excites them, but at the same time doesn't get boring after a week or so. A lot of people say most Kinect games, a lot of Wii games and PlayStation Move games get old fast. So what do you think the key is to that from a design perspective, to make an alternative control scheme that's got longevity and substance?
Honestly,
yeah,
I can't. iPilot definitely wouldn't hold up to that. oh, you can play it a week, like you can play it for a week, and there's just all this content or like all this depth that you wouldn't have seen before. No, playing iPilot, you play it like once or twice, and you kind of get it, and that's kind of it.
Huh.
So I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, the best way to do that. Like I I'm in very much the same camp of uh, gimmicky controls are
Mhm.
not necessarily the best thing. Like iPilot was designed just to be like sort of like an exhibition piece, just for like an event. And me and Craig like jammed it out in very little time. We like worked. We sat down on his couch and worked on it for like a day, and then after that, we just put minor tweaks into it, and that's it. Like we spent a day on
Awesome. Who did the graphics for it?
Craig. Craig did the graphics. He's an experienced 3D.
He's pretty good at those graphics. Yeah, just check it. I figured it was him, but
Yeah.
it's such a different style than his other work that I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah. No. He was excited to try something 3D for once. He hadn't done it in a while. Like I don't. Maybe I shouldn't go into his background. I don't know how much he.
He's a pretty secretive dude, that Craig.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll leave him out of it. I've asked him to be on the show, and he's like, only if it's from Japan, and at 5 in the morning, with 9 of my closest friends whose names will remain anonymous. And I'm like, well, okay, I'll try to arrange all that. Like, he had all these really specific ideas about how to do it and who to do it with. And if we can pull that off, we will. But if not, he'll remain mysterious forever. So it's interesting that you would just come right out and say that your own game doesn't have that kind of longevity, but that's okay. I think that people are missing that, is that not every game has to be this kind of 60-hour epic, and they're missing that with Kinect and PlayStation Move games and stuff like that too. A lot of those games aren't supposed to be enjoyed for more than a week, and that's all right. I wonder about bundling them all together, though. I wonder why that doesn't happen more often.
Probably because they put a lot of resources into like one game. They don't want to package it all together and sell it for $60. You know?
Yeah, it's the whole
They'd
money
rather
thing
sell
again.
a bunch of little ones for $60 each because they still sell.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. As much as our gamer focused like culture sort of berates these games and says we'll never buy them and stuff, and a lot of us don't. There's a whole other culture that does, and they sell very well to those people. So it's a little disappointing because there could definitely be better games. There's like that one Kinect Joyride video where the guy is literally standing like this the entire time and he wins the race.
Oh, yeah, that was a sad one.
Yeah.
People were really upset at me for a little while for saying I didn't think Kinect was that important or what I was talking about, because originally it was going to let you like make a skateboard in your game all of a sudden and like beam into the game Star Trek wise and be dancing around, and then it just
show Milo a drawing just by going like this, and then he would be like, "Oh yeah, that's a plane or whatever."
Yeah, and that never still hasn't come out. Instead, we have Kinect Star Wars and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a sad world. Let's move on to happier worlds. Tell me about. I want to get the name of it right. We've talked about a lot of stuff, so I'm already forgetting my old information because all this new information just went in. It was Friendship in 4 Colors.
Yeah.
Is that the name of it?
Yep, that's the name.
That's the game I want people to play the most. And that's free. You can just download that right now. The link.
Grab a buddy, play through it.
Yeah. Tell us about that game so people can be excited about it.
So that game I made a little over a year ago now at Toe Jam, which is the Toronto Game Jam, but we call it Toe Jam because it's funnier. And basically, and that's like sort of the first game that like made people think like, oh, this guy actually has some skill, and that's what made me like be like, I am out of here, bank, and into game world.
But it wasn't a profit deal, that game. You still
no. But I realized like I saved up money, and then I figured I could build an audience, and which I feel like I've done somewhat now. And so
Yeah.
now I'm working on commercial release. But back to Friendship Before Colors. Um, Friendship Before Colors is a game where basically you play, or there's two players, and you progress through the levels. And at first, you don't really get why it's two-player because it's just two dudes that have to get to the end of the level, but you can't really interact with the other person or anything. So then the next level, you get a power-up that says jet boosters, and it's like, oh, okay. I wonder what that was. And people very quickly figure out that it's a double jump. So they double jump along the next level. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, this one of the players just got this thing called grab bullets. And then now it's kind of like, what does that mean? And so I purposely used names that weren't necessarily very easy to figure out what it meant. Because the theme of the game, or the theme of the jam that I was at was what just happened. So I wanted things to happen and then people to be like, why did that happen? What did I do to cause that? So you get these grab bullets, the lighter player does, and then whenever the player jumps off of the ground, they shoot out this spray of bullets everywhere. And the other player has to dodge that. And so I designed the level so that the players have to jump through, and one player is constantly dodging the other player's bullets. But then the other player gets a laser every time he's in the air. A giant laser that covers the entire screen basically shoots out of his back. And so then it's very much like a bit of like a ballet of like trying to work your characters around each other to be able to, and like a lot of communication between the players, which was my main goal, is to just get people talking to each other while playing a co-op game. And yeah, I'm the worst at explaining my game.
No, that was an awesome explanation. You can't see their faces at home, but they're all like, "What? I can accidentally kill my friends with lasers?
Yeah,
Amazing!" They're all totally excited.
Friendly fire the game is what a lot of people call it.
What do they call it? I didn't hear you for some reason. Maybe it's my
Friendly
ears.
fire the game.
Friendly fire. Oh, friendly fire. Yeah, like killing your friends.
Yeah,
It's something that.
Mechanic.
So interesting that so few people. You've got these ideas, these little. They don't seem like they're hugely complicated ideas. These little punches of ideas that other people just aren't doing. It's a strange thing. New Super Mario Brothers Wii had a little bit of that where you can help your friends, but you can also accidentally kill them. But they didn't make a whole gameplay mechanic around it. It was just kind of a.
Well, the thing with that is, if it's forced multiplayer, that's not going to sell systems, or that's not going to sell units, right? Because there's constantly people these days complaining, I don't have time to invite friends over and play games with them. I'd rather play online with them because it's so much easier to set up, and I can do that more consistently, so I can play my game more.
Sure.
And these like couch co-op games are fading out, except in the indie scene where we're realizing the merits of it, and maybe not making commercial stuff that is like that, but definitely a lot of little freeware games we're making, just a lot of local multiplayer, either versus or co-op. That is just an awesome time, because see, like a lot of indies just make these games so that they can play them at indie events with other indies.
Yeah, like Johann Sebastian Joust was
exactly
partially about that. But it's interesting, isn't it? You've got this split dichotomy, maybe even if I'm using that word right, where we've got people saying, I don't want to, play games with people in real life. I'll just play online. That's easier. But then I'll spend $90 to go to PAX and sit on the beanbags and just play Pokemon with strangers. And you have people wanting to go to indie events and be with other developers there. So I almost feel like people are shooting themselves in the foot by telling themselves, online is really what I want, because it just kind of systematically, it seems like real-life interactions keep coming back. And instinctually, I think that's really what people want. Online is just kind of a simulation of actually being with your friends. actually having them in your house seems to be the most fun for people.
Yeah,
overall.
it's such a blast playing on the couch with your friends. Yeah, and so Friendship Before Colors ended up in an arcade cabinet actually. Like we have a bunch of arcade cabinets in Toronto called Torontotrons.
Oh
Um,
yeah, is that similar to Winitron?
yeah, Winatron was actually based off of the Torontotron, and like
Oh,
um, so what so yeah, and I would sometimes just go to where the arcade cabinet was. I wouldn't go there specifically to see it most of the time, but sometimes I'd just be wandering in the area and I'd pop in and see if anybody was playing, and I'd watch them, and which is creepy, but designers kind of have to do that to get sort of like just an outside perspective of how people are experiencing their games and what you can do better and stuff. Um, so I watch them play, and all inevitably they start off, especially if they're strangers. They're not really talking to each other. They're just like just going through the level, and then they realize that they have to start talking to each other, and
yeah.
that's what's awesome. Is I've made a game that forces people to talk to each other, and the original title is was testing the limits of your friendship through game mechanics. That was a wordy title. Um,
Sure.
yeah, and I kind of like that. I wish I kept it, but it's um, it really does, because I remember once. So later, you get one of the guys gets something called the front laser, which every time they push forward, they shoot this laser this way.
Okay.
Um, and I set it up so the level, the guy with the laser, starts behind the other guy. So,
Okay.
and instinctually, you just push forward right when you start the level, but that just blows this guy up instantly. So, I remember two of my friends playing the game, and like one of them just kept not getting that they had to stop hitting forward, and it was hilarious because they just could not grasp it, and so so they switch controllers. They're like, all right, come on, switch controllers. I'm gonna do this, and so the other guy just starts holding forward again, like just constantly killing the guy. He's like, see how it feels? Like they're screaming at him.
But they knew they couldn't progress unless
Yeah.
they cooperated. If you kill your friend, you're essentially killing yourself in that game.
Yeah.
And yet they still couldn't help but do it. It's so interesting. You seem so aware that these are mechanics that aren't going to necessarily make you a billionaire, because the people are afraid to have to commit to another human being in their game experience like that. There's so much of gaming which is about, well, I want to be able to do this alone, and people are willing to pay high prices to not have to play games with local co-op. They pay for online subscriptions just for that, and you're just forcing them. You're flipping it and forcing them to not only play with each other but have to like listen to each other. It's like you're forcing them to become better people. Which is fun.
That's the goal.
That's a great goal. You know, Eric Erickson, psychologist extraordinaire. They maybe taught you about him in some of the college you took. I don't know, political science. Maybe they would teach you. Maybe they wouldn't.
No, I was only in for like a year.
Oh yeah. How was it? How'd you like college? It's not that good.
It was an interesting atmosphere. I kind of liked it. I liked that everybody seemed more eager to learn than in high school, where everybody was quite dismissive of like what was going on, because you're
Sure.
kind of forced into it. While university is at least more of a choice.
Yeah, a little bit.
The thing was, it just was not my environment. And Edmund McMillan talked a lot about how design schools, like there's no good game design school out there yet. Same goes for Anna Anthropy. They're constantly talking about how like Anna went to a game design school, and she's like, it's all just game like publishing and being a producer and stuff. It's not really design. It's all just business stuff,
Sure.
and like project management and stuff like that. And like even like I've asked game design students here, like, would you recommend I go to a game design school? Like knowing that like I have some background in design now, like just doing it a couple of years. Would you recommend it? And they'd be like, no, it's not at all for you. Like you already have everything that the course would have pretty much taught you. And then now I'm like, well, what's the point if I spent like 2 years just tinkering around with like making little games, and I've gotten the same education. I mean, I'm sure it's not the same, but I've gotten like similar things out of it that somebody paid like $20,000 to do. Like,
yeah. You found your own college, and you helped make your own college amongst your peers, and learn from them, and learn.
People, right? They don't have that little piece of paper saying.
I know it's a very old world thing. The fact that we all care about paper anyway. We got the internet now. What do we need paper for? When's the last time you printed something out? Do you printouts, or you just use your iPhone?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we don't even need a paper at all, let alone diploma paper. Well, I'm wondering, soon we'll get people in the chat. This is from my friend Sinistar, the engineer. Feel free to get those questions coming in, Sinistar. Assume we have anyone asking questions. If not, I can just talk to you. Trust me. I just feel guilty when I ignore the chat people, because they like to interact too. Where could we go from here? How can you become rich? You have really committed yourself to this. You no longer work at the bank. You're no longer in college.
No.
And you don't have 500,000 Twitter followers yet.
Not yet.
But you want them. And you want to not die. You want to be able to make games and not die together. So how can you do it? What's your plan to become totally rich?
My plan is not to be rich, really. It's more just to be sustainable.
You don't want to be totally rich?
Well, it would be nice, but that's not really my goal. Like, I don't really care much for that. Like, psychology research shows money above the poverty line doesn't really make you any happier. There's like a certain point where if you have a certain, like if you're making a certain amount of money per year, over that, like generally does not make a person much happier. It's not. So I'm not gonna like stress out about like making my $1 million or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it would be nice. It would be nice, but my goal is just to make a little bit of cash.
Like survival cash?
Yeah, just to be able to survive to make the next game and see what I can do with that. And I have no idea what I'm doing.
Does it ever freak you out? Do you ever wake up in the morning and think, I could just starve to death trying to make the clown who wanted everything, and that'll be, I'll be dying coding that game, and I'll never get finished because I'll run out of soup and I'll freeze to death in the winter of your discontent. Aren't you terrified?
Well, there's a tiny bit of that terror, but I have a super supportive family, so I know that they would help me out if I ever needed to, if I ever like fell and needed help getting back on my feet. So that's sort of like, okay, there's a guy named Jim McGinley in Toronto, and he's, if anybody, you said that John Blow made me like drop school and quit the bank and stuff. It was actually, you could pin the blame more on a guy named Jim McGinley, and he's sort of the like one of the heads of the Hand-Eye Society here in Toronto. And he's sort of seen as like a sort of father figure of the scene. At least I would say so. And he's hilarious and awesome. And during one talk one time, he said, you guys need to, or like it was a talk to a bunch of college students, and I was just hanging out with them because like a bunch of my friends, like these were game design students and stuff. So I was just hanging out with them. And I decided to go to the talk because I like Jim. And he said, you guys are young right now. You can afford to make these risks. Do your risks when you're young. If you fail, well, that sucks. But at least you tried. And that's kind of what I'm doing. That's sort of like when he said, I'm like, when I realized I'm young, I can sort of do these things and still get away with it. Like some people are like switching degrees and stuff and still trying to figure their stuff out. Like at my age, like or going back to college at my age because they realized their degree was not that great or like is not getting them anything. Um, so I'm realizing, all right, I'm gonna take the risk now. If anything, I could go back to school for something else later. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sounds like, and stop me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you've set the standard for yourself. The more risks you take now and the more you just try, regardless of how things turn out now, the more you're going to kind of rate yourself as a success. And the whole
yeah,
money thing and fame thing, you don't seem like you're hard after that at the moment,
no,
which
no.
is refreshing. Um,
I'm not at all about fame or money. I wish I could make all my games free, which is why I have a lot of uh, games that are free right now. Um, and The Clown Who Wanted Everything was originally going to be free, but took way too long to make. So
yeah,
now it's
how
not.
long have you been working on that for? We haven't touched on that too much yet.
I've been working on The Clown Who Wanted Everything for since January, so 6 months now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, and I worked on another game. I've actually made like 10 games this year. So
What?
yeah, so like they're all tiny. They're tiny, tiny things. Some of
Uh,
them at least. And so um, it's like it hasn't been full time development until recently. Um,
okay.
so I haven't really spent super long on it. But
Well,
I
you
would,
know, it sounds like by everyone's got different standards, and by your standards, you've turned out a lot of games quickly. Whereas, you know, Braid took what, like, that took him 3 years? He had two or three different artists on it, and spent like $600,000 of his own money. That's one scale, and
yeah,
then the scale you're more used to doing sounds smaller, quicker, and cheaper, which is great too. But with the Clown That Wanted Everything, you're kind of expanding into closer to a Braid style size game. It sounds like.
yeah, it's really getting that way. Well, like Braid has a bunch of like like larger levels that have multiple puzzles in them.
Hmm.
My all my levels are very much like one small puzzle in each level, and most of them you can beat in a couple seconds if you know what to do. But if you don't, it could take you like a couple minutes to figure it out, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and the difficulty seems to ramp up
Yeah.
relatively quickly. We'll be
Oh,
talking more in depth about that game. This is good. This is a teaser.
okay. Yeah.
This
Teaser.
gets
Teaser.
people all excited for what's going to happen in 20 minutes when we talk more about that. But in the meantime, we have a couple of questions from Slow Holmes, who's a frequent viewer of the show. Hi, Slow Holmes. Thanks for watching the show. What do you do the first week after creating a cohesive game concept? He asks.
Release it.
Yeah, you're that fast. You're
Yeah.
that fast.
Um, my friends and I make like sometimes my friend Kayla and I would make like be like 5 minute game jam right now. What can you do? And usually it's just like a little guy that can jump or something. Um, but usually like my first 10 like games after I got serious or so, or like my first 10 games or so after I got serious,
Mhm.
um, I released them all within a week. They were all made during during game prototype challenges, which were just kind of like challenges run by my friend Jason, who and what they are basically just encouraging people and giving people ideas to make games and you're given a week deadline and two themes. So like there was a game or there was a theme like immortality and thin ice. Those were like two themes that you had to like work with. So
Huh.
I made a game called Made of Mirrors where you were a guy named Mirror Man and you went around jumping off walls and stuff. Um, and then there were a bunch of enemies, and whenever you got shot by these enemies, the bullets would bounce back because you're Mirror Man. That's your superpower, is to reflect
Huh.
things. But it would kill the people who shot them, and that would make him depressed. And so he would get more and more depressed and less able to like. He moved super slow after he got really depressed and super and couldn't jump very high. But then he could take drugs to make him feel better. I don't know. It was
Huh. Yeah,
and
like antidepressants.
the thin ice aspect. I just put like a little like breakable block mechanic where like if you stood on it for long enough, it would just snap and you'd fall through it and stuff. And
Interesting.
like so, I made a bunch of games in a week. Or
Was
like
there Just out of curiosity, though, was there a downside to taking drugs in your game, or is it a pro-drugs game?
No.
Pro-drugs. That's cool. Hey.
It's not like I'm like probably like the cleanest slate person you'll ever, or straight edge person you'll ever meet. But
Sure.
I just thought it'd be funny. That's all.
It is. Don't get me wrong. It's just that in your sounds like one of your design principles that you stick in a lot of games is for every thing that happens to your player, it's good. Then there's this sudden drawback that they have to deal with too. So it's never, except for with drugs. Yeah. Pro drugs. Woo. Before I forget, I really hope you take all of these games and sell them to me for real, because they sound like they're worth my money, and it's bad to me. There's so many games that there's so many of these little games that are being made, and people think, oh, it's too small to bother selling. But for me, I'll never forget when WarioWare first came out, because games had been moving, mainstream games had been moving to bigger, more complicated, 12-button controls and 60-hour experiences, like I was saying before. And then WarioWare came out and just said, no, we will value just a 5-second, this is an idea, just quick idea, and then next idea, and then next idea. And I want more games like that. I just played the new WarioWare E3, and it's not even like that anymore. Like, each experience takes like 5 minutes, and they're losing that already.
It's horrible.
I know, right? It's technically not WarioWare. It's called Game and Wario. But it's just another mini-game collection, and the humor wasn't in it. It was very, very depressing. So I have this fear right now that I'm going to lose that WarioWare spirit. And it sounds like you've got it. You've got the spirit, don't you?
I try. I mean, I love the WarioWare games.
Me too, man.
The one where you had to tilt was definitely.
Oh yeah, Twisted. Twisted was so good. That's probably the peak of the series. So we got more questions. I don't want to blow them off. Sorry guys, I didn't get to them quickly. Netgrind asks, "What's your favorite local party game, Damian?"
Yeah. So actually, Netgrind is my friend Kale that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, cool. Maybe he'll be on the show next.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the cycle repeats itself.
It could be.
My favorite local party game. So, that's a tough one because I have a lot. There's a game called Dungeons of Fate, which is an indie game. It's a 4-player indie game, and it's a dungeon crawler. So you start off, you're going through a dungeon, and everybody's like the same stats and everything, and you're going through, and and then at like when you finish a dungeon, you get out, and then there's this whole town map. And it's kind of like, have you ever played Princess Maker?
Yeah, but not for very long. I knew some guys that loved it.
The concept was stolen from Princess Maker, and then I stole Dungeons of Fate's concept for a completely different game. But basically, you can go around town and do different things. Like, you could go like work at a farm and make some money, and then go to like the Wizard's Tower and like buy like training for the Wizard's Tower and stuff. And so you get all these different stats, and everybody's like buying different stat ups and like power ups and stuff, like to get better stats and like to be able to change classes and stuff. And but every time you go and do something, there's a chance, a pretty high chance that something weird happens while you're there. Like, so you're working at the farm, and an old woman comes up to you and says, "I have magic beans. You can buy them for like 100 gold." And you can go, "Okay, I guess I'll buy them." And then you plant them at the farm. And then another player goes to the farm and it's like, "There's a beanstalk now where the magic beans were. Would you wish to water it or harvest it?" And then they'll be like, "I'll water it." And then they go back, and it's like, the beanstalk has now grown into like this like woman, like this dryad, and like she kisses you and you gain like 1,000,000 strength. Like, you get a lot of power. Like, and there's a lot of weird stuff where it's like, you could, it's so good. I love Dungeons
Sounds like really good writing that doesn't necessarily focus on trying to be predictable in any way. It's just okay with throwing you curveballs constantly, which you don't see a lot of these days.
Totally. Yeah, so Dungeons of Fate is awesome. And like the best part is, so it starts off and it's like you have 3 months or 4 months before the Bone Lord comes. So you have to do all this stuff and like power up enough to be able to defeat the Bone Lord at the end.
Is he a skeleton? Is he a
Yeah,
skeleton?
yeah, skeleton who summons a bunch of things, um, and this is a freeware game too. Everybody can download it. Search up Dungeons of Fate.
Dungeons of Fate. Okay.
But like this just it's better than the Mass Effect Suicide Mission, even in like the whole like impending doom. Like you have to, like you have a very strict time limit of you have to be ready for this moment, or else everything is over. Like it takes an hour to play through the game, and then everybody's like, "Oh shit, we have to fight the Bone Lord." Everybody's freaking out. It's like, oh my god, if we lose, we lose. Like
yeah, that hour wasted, complete waste of time.
Not wasted because you have this whole story that you've developed, like
right.
Arthur became the mayor, and like, oh, that's so cool, and like you became like some crazy paladin dude, and yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good take on life, because we're all preparing for our own personal Bone Lords to take us away to the other life, the afterlife. And in the process of preparing for that, we have fun and surprises along the way. That's kind of the point of life, I think. Whoa, Dungeons of Fate, totally deep art game about life, maybe.
Yeah, basically, it's better than Passage.
Yeah, take that, Jason Roher. I don't know how to say his name out loud. I only read it.
I love Jason Roher and all his games.
Oh, me too.
I think it's
everyone
wrong.
does. He's a lovable scamp, and there's a certain, I don't know, good-naturedness to his games. I think that caused me to like him, even though I don't know him particularly well. We'll get back to you, Slow Holmes. Your question looks good too, but other people asked, and I want to do them in order. Johnny Viral, our old friend and excellent live stream man himself. Why clowns? He asks you, Damien. Really? Why clowns? Fucking things are creepy. He's creeped out by clowns. What a beautiful illustration, though, for your clown game.
My friend Mark actually did that illustration, and he's nuts. He's
great.
And I just posted on Twitter. Like, this is a huge aside, but I just posted on Twitter to like a couple of my friends who I knew were good at art. I can't offer any like money for this, but if anybody wants to draw like nice art for the clown who wanted everything, I'd really appreciate it. And like, he spent days on this like giant piece of like super intricately detailed like art that I'm blown away still by it. And so anyway, why clowns? So my girlfriend is an improviser. Like she does like improv shows and stuff, like improvisation.
Like comedy or just improv?
Well, it's not only comedy, but like it's mostly it has a comedic bent to it. But so she, on her improv team, they were playing a game called Zulu, and how the game goes is everybody stands up at the front, and it's an elimination game. And somebody like in the audience comes up with a theme, and then there's a moderator, and the moderator points to people on the team, and those people have to come up with like a fake thing. So like, let's say, I'm horrible at improv, but like, let's say the theme is, I don't know, toys, and then somebody's like, I don't know, they'll say some like, they'll have to make up a toy every time somebody points to them. If they can't make up a toy, or they say like a toy that already exists, they get kicked out.
Oh, okay.
They get buzzed out, and then so it's an elimination game. So they were doing villains. The theme was villains, and somebody on the team, Misha, said the clown who wanted everything, and everybody just cracked up because, like, really the only thing that makes the clown who wanted everything a villain is just that he wanted everything.
Yeah.
Like, and that phrase sort of stuck with me. I actually didn't see it happen, but my girlfriend told me about it afterwards. And so, like, it just stuck with me, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And then I had a game idea that it would match up with, so I'm like, all right, we'll do that. And so that's why clowns. I had no idea. I knew people were afraid of clowns. I had no idea the extent that people were afraid of clowns. Like, I didn't think that I thought it was a small percentage of people. No, like, I've got like 1 in 10 people are like, clowns.
but you've made him such a kind of a little icon. He's not a realistic clown like Tim Curry in It.
Like
Terrifying. But your clown is relatable.
Oh yeah, in game he's like 10 pixels tall. He doesn't even have like a clown nose or anything, at least in the pixel art version of him. Like,
yeah, he's just got a head and feet. He's
yeah,
very, yeah, he's a lovable little guy. But it's you said so many things, and the theme that keeps coming back to me and everything you're saying is just doing these things because they resonate with you and you have a passion to actually do them, as opposed to, I mean, you named your whole game off of a story about an improv. I mean, that's not the what they teach you in business school. They don't say, oh, well, talk to your girlfriend about what she did in her improv comedy group and then just base your 6 months to a year project on that. That's you're really just grabbing inspiration and running with it. And your friends are too. Your friends, you said, I can't pay you for this, but and they still churn out this beautiful artwork. Your goals don't seem to be to get rich. You said that before, and whenever somebody says that, people are like, yeah, you want to get rich, though. You're just saying that. But the more you tell me about yourself, Damian, the more I believe you. Yeah. You really are just going to be poor and interesting for the rest of your life. That's fun.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah, so far, so good. Trey Cup asks, and then after this, we'll get to I really want to hear about the clown who wanted everything, because now they're thoroughly teased, our listening. But before that, Trey Cup asks, what has been your most exciting experience making a game? Has it ever been like jumping through rings of fire and hanging out with Johnny Cash and fist bumping aliens and stuff like that? Has it ever been totally exciting to make a video game, or is it ever just typing?
It's totally exciting sometimes. The really quick game jams are probably the most exciting. The game jams that are like 4 hours, make a game, and like they're like in-person game jams especially. So like I ran a game jam called Griddle Jam, which involved me making a bunch of pancakes, and then everybody ate the pancakes, and then we also made games. And just like I was running back and forth, like seeing what everybody was making and also making like my own game. And the theme of the jam was George Washington, which we pulled out of a hat. Like everybody submitted an idea. And then we pulled the theme out of the hat, and so it ended up being George Washington. So everybody was making games with like George Washington in it, and like mine was like George Washington in space fighting like one of the British people, and like they like punch each other.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Is that a real game I can play?
I don't think I ever posted it online. It was a 4 hour game. It's very simple.
It was 4 hours to make, not to play through.
Yeah, 4 hours to make, not to play.
Did you make the graphics and everything? Does it have graphics?
Graphics.
Okay. Check. That's the first thing I ask about a lot of games, unless it's a text-based game. So it's got graphics. It's got George Washington.
Yeah.
It's in space.
It's got people punching each other in space. Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
I think you should post the game immediately. I think it'll be a huge hit. And why not? That's a good story. I'm excited about that. Electric Viking asks, what video game developer influenced you the most as a lad? Now we know that it was Jim, started with a G. McGinley. Yeah, like John C. McGinley. I have to remember that.
Like maybe people know him for he made his most well-known game is The Depths to Which We Sink, which won Indicate Audience Award last year. It's like a really neat, like it's one of the few games that have like 3D or that are 3D, like you have to wear 3D glasses.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the few games that actually needs it as part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
so that's Jim McGinley, not John C. McGinley from Scrubs. And John Blow was a big influence on you, but going even younger than that, when you were...
I didn't really know names of game developers back when I was like a kid. I didn't really, and I doubt most kids do really.
Well, they used to keep them secret. I think I'm quite a bit older than you, but when I was a kid playing NES games, I'd look in the credits, and like the guy who did the music for Mega Man 2 was Yuko-chan's Papa. I was like, I guess he's my favorite then. He's my favorite video game composer, but they didn't want to release who their names were because they were worried that the talent would get headhunted. So they actually kept their developers kind of anonymous back then. But to kind of phrase it in a different way for Electric Viking, what are some of the games that you grew up on that you really liked?
I really liked the Game Boy Color version of Mario Tennis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nobody says that. Wow.
Um,
Game Boy Color one. Was that by Camelot? Was that kind of the
Camelot,
RPG-ish
Camelot.
one? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little RPG-ish. It's got a bunch of like actually, the Clown Who Wanted Everything is taking a bit of cues from that, and just yeah, we'll get into it. But yeah, I really liked the Game Boy Color version of uh, Mario Tennis. I also like Donkey Kong 94, which was a Game
Yeah,
Boy.
man.
Donkey Kong 94 is amazing.
Don't even get me started. Donkey Kong 94. What? I remember when I first played it because I liked Donkey Kong original a lot. I didn't like Donkey Kong Country Returns that much just because they took an icon and changed him into something else. And to me, Donkey Kong was an icon that symbolized a certain kind of feeling. You start Donkey Kong 94 and you're like, oh, crap, it's a Donkey Kong port. You get through the first 4 levels and it suddenly just...
Yeah,
just
it's a puzzle platformer.
Exactly. So many new ideas just slammed
so
in your face.
And
one on top of another. Such
unknown too. It's such a tragedy. Like and Mario controls the best in Donkey Kong 94. Like he can do backflips.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the first time Mario's doing all these like crazy acrobatic things. And like you could flip on your hands to do a handstand, but if you pressed A at just the right time when you hit the ground, you do a jump higher than you could normally jump. And
it was intense. He had you could jump on the what do you call those, gymnastics wheels and stuff like that. He didn't, unlike in the Mario series where he was all a power up based guy. This is just Mario being a complete badass from beginning to end, which is how he started off, being Jumpman. It was just like, who's this dude with a mustache that's going to somehow like climb this building and kill a monkey? He must be a complete powerhouse. And then he lost a little bit of that. And then Donkey Kong 94, he brought it right back. Wow, we're like Donkey Kong 94 brothers now.
Yeah.
We're totally bonding hard over this. Well, what happened to you? You disappeared. Oh, you're back. That was fun. I thought you died for a second. You just like light, but you're still here with us. Yeah, so good. So and we're gonna get into the Clown Who Wanted Everything now, I think. It's a perfect segue because it's got a little bit of a Donkey Kong 94 feel to me in that simple puzzle-based thinking, but an importance of platformer skill and new ideas being thrown at you all the time.
Yeah. So here's the pitch.
Pitch it.
Yeah. So you're a clown, and you go to what I imagine a clown school is, which is a series of extremely dangerous acrobatic challenges that involve like, or not hundreds, but dozens of power-ups. Like that's what I imagine clown school is. Personally, I haven't interviewed any clowns.
I have.
Really?
I'll tell you. Yeah, it is not unlike what you're describing. Well, the death traps are not physical death; it's emotional death of being a failed clown. Like it's very scary to get in front of the kids and honk your horn and do your dance, and the kids just go, "Ah, get it away!" You know, that's a clown's internal death when that happens. And they are given many different tools with which to learn how to clown. But they need to be able to use some of those tools in conjunction. Your funny honk nose and your horn, redundant, honk and squirting flour in your lapel, brilliant. And you have to know how to use them together. So without even knowing it, you are something of a clown college expert, sir.
Yeah, apparently. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So basically, the game has extremely simple controls. You can move left, right, and then there's one button that does everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't start off being able to do anything with that button in each level. And so there's a bunch of power-ups strewn across the level, and the goal is to grab all the power-ups and land safely on the ground. But each power-up changes what that button does, like that one button, your action button. So let's say you got the jump power up. So now you can jump around. So you jump up, and now you can also collect like the umbrella power up. So you jump up, you grab the umbrella, and when you hold down the button, you're like you're like drifting because you have the umbrella open. But then like you get the whirly-McGig power up, which is a helicopter, and now every time you hold down the button, you're flying around because like you're helicoptery, and then
and you're umbrellaing and you jump.
and you're jumping. So so you have to be careful because if you're using the whirly-McGig off the ground, you're also going to be jumping, which is going to like propel you really quickly, rather than if you just use the whirly-McGig on its own. So sometimes I can set up like spikes right at the top, so like to teach you like don't do that. Like, so there's a bunch of levels with a bunch of different combinations of stuff. There's like a lizard. It's the basilisk, and if you collect it, you turn to stone if you're not holding down the button. But if you do hold down the button, then you can move around normally. But then, like I can also give you the ghost gem, which when you're holding down the button, you like clip through things. Like you could just like fall and go through like everything.
Whoa.
Like nothing can touch you.
Right.
So then if I combine like the basilisk and the ghost gem, then suddenly people are either stone or going through things. And so like they either can't move or they're like falling through like the level.
Huh.
And so then I have a lot of different things that I do. Like all like the game is super easy to make levels for because there's so many interesting combinations with what I've put into the game.
Right.
It's just like, oh, okay, let me try this and this. Oh, that's really cool. All right, I'm gonna make a level out of that. Oh, I haven't taught how to use this mechanic yet. I'll do that, and then it's so easy to make levels, but it's a lot of fun. And like the game's gonna have
fun.
Sorry.
It's easy and fun.
It's easy and fun to make levels. Yeah.
That's the perfect combination.
Yeah.
That's the chocolate and peanut butter of game development. Awesome. It's when, but you're still working on it. You've been working on it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
When will you know when you're done, you think?
Well, it's like I sent you a build, and it's very much still the world map is very much not finished, and I'm only done about half the levels because right now I'm just working on like polish and stuff.
Sure.
And then I'll do the other half.
But it sounds like the kind of game where you could wake up tomorrow and just be like, oh, radiator's making a hissing sound. There'll be a radiator power-up that makes you hiss and blow steam out of your face.
Yep.
Oh, now I'm going to put that in the game. Oh, I went to the bus stop and a guy farted. Fart power-up. All right, now I got to, but like, I can see you just like never wanting to stop making this game because it's really a brilliant notion to keep it that simple, but to reward players that much for trying new things and having to experience new things all the time.
Yeah, and there's a level editor in it, like going to be included, and so like I'm sure there's ideas that I didn't think of, like combinations that I couldn't find myself, and so there's going to be hopefully tons of people making these super interesting levels, and I've already like my alpha testers, I've sent out like copies of the level editor to them, and they've made ridiculously cool stuff that I did not think of, and they're teaching me mechanics that existed in my game that I had not realized I programmed in.
Wow.
Just like some like the priority of some of the items I was not aware of until they made it. I made a level around it, and now and like there's one, like I have an item called the probability machine, which is actually just a coin, and so and it flips and it goes like it says heads or tails, but every time you press the button, you throw it, so you have to go collect it again, sort of thing.
Ah, gotcha.
So somebody made a level where it's actually you're running across a bunch of destructible platforms, and the coin actually activates these destructible platforms as well when it touches them. So you're running through this level and like throwing the coin, and it's like causing things to break, and you're like, oh, it's such a beautiful level. Like it's my favorite. It's my favorite level in the game, and it's not. I didn't even make it. And,
awesome. Wow. So and it's that easy for people to make levels in your game as well and share them with you immediately.
Yep. Yeah, I actually have a button that just says "Send to developer."
Oh, that's so great. So is this game, are you going to be able to sell this one, or are you going to maintain the freeware model on this too?
No, this is totally going to be sold. Um, it'll be digital release as well as physical. There'll be a limited physical release for those people who really like that box, um, and the CD and like the instruction manual and all that, like old school instruction manual.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Like, I've never done this before. I feel uncomfortable with asking people for money. Um, I once got commissioned for a game and then ran away before they could pay me. But the game was made, but I just didn't let them pay me because I didn't think I did a good enough job.
Really? You didn't want to leave it up to them to make that call? You were like, I'm making the decision,
No,
no
like,
money for me.
they were ecstatic about the game, but I felt like it wasn't my strongest work, so I'm like, no, don't pay me.
Do you think, I don't like taking money either for stuff because it changes it from doing it because you wanted to doing it because it gives you a different motive. The art gets eaten away a little bit. Because to me, art is anything that isn't done because you had to do it to survive. That's all reproductive instinct and hunting and gathering and like competing with other males in order to get the chick by puffing your chest out and flexing your butt muscles and dancing around and stuff. That's all instinct, and it's yuck to me a little bit. Whereas art is, I did this just because I had a passion for doing it. I don't even know why I wanted to do it, but humor can be that, and game development and all of that. And once money gets into it, then you're doing it to survive, and it's paints it a bit.
It's weird, but I've realized it's sort of a necessity, and I have people constantly shouting at me now, like, Damien, your stuff is worth things. Let me pay you for things.
Yeah, and from being on the sidelines, and I've said this to quite a few people. Uh-oh, my battery's almost dead. My computer broke today.
Oh.
Anyway, so the show might end immediately. It's got 7% left. Anyway, I was saying, being on the sidelines, I see guys like you, and I have to choose, like, who do I want to succeed, because there's only so much money around for game developers. And I'd much rather you succeed than other people, but that'll only happen if you actually want the money to be made.
Well,
yeah.
My mindset has shifted a little since the running away from money part of my life. But like I'm willing to accept it. I actually tried the other day to set up like a donation button on my website, but I couldn't figure out the code, and then I was like, whatever. Like I spent like 5 minutes of it. I'm like, oh, something's screwing up here. Whatever. Like it's not that big of a deal.
That's the irony of it. If your priorities were any different, then you wouldn't be making as good games, because the games you're making are so interesting because they're not made because you're trying to be rich. If you were trying to be rich, you would just follow the pattern of what rich people do to get their games made. You'd just be making more humdrum run-of-the-mill stuff. But and yet, well, once you just start selling them, you don't have to do too much. You just need to let people be able to give you money. And then you will maybe not be filthy rich, but I'm confident you will survive, which is exciting for me. And I know a bunch of guys that want to publish games all the time for consoles, and I can put you in touch with them too. Maybe they'll put your games on consoles. I don't know. Would you like that?
That's a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
well,
PC is a console. It's not that different.
We actually haven't gotten into this, but I don't really know how to program all that well. I'm not the best programmer in the world. I actually use something similar to GameMaker to make my games. It's called Multimedia Fusion 2.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, and Konjac used it for Noi 2 Love 2, and Knit Stories was made with it. There's a bunch of good games out there that were made with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I use to make my games. But like, it's very restrictive in some ways. Like developing for console is kind of a no-no.
Well, I've heard that it's not that tough with a relatively simple game like yours to kind of code that for XBLA or for 3DS. We had a guy named Jules Watcham, who's from Renegade Kid, on the show a few months back. And he said he ported the XBLA version of his game Mutant Mudds to 3DS in like a couple of days or something. Just like pressed port and it got ported. So
That's impressive. But I don't actually have any code. Like mine is all point and click stuff. Like I do all my coding with like this mouse right here.
Oh, awesome! Well, that's easier for you. But the code is written there in the program.
The logic is in there, but not so much the syntax of the actual like programming language. Like
Right.
I can do some programming, but I'm not familiar enough with the syntax to be able to like I understand the logic, but the syntax just ruins me. I can't get my handle on it. I'm always like my next game. I've already planned out my next game now, and like I'm already starting to like collaborate sort of a team together, or like collect a team together to do it. But like I'm gonna be the programmer / designer of that game. So like I don't know, man.
You're feeling like you already have so much going on already that making a console port would be.
Yeah, and just seeing Indie Game the movie, and just not even just seeing that. Like I've heard before, just making a game just for XBLA is a nightmare. In just like getting Microsoft certification, because they're so strict and they have so many little requirements, like so many little things that drives people nuts just getting everything done. So it's very intimidating to even consider going on console, and also just seeing the numbers, like PC, or the number of sales that PC games get. In regards to console, like Super Meat Boy. I'm not trying to compare my game to Super Meat Boy here, but Super Meat Boy has gotten like 75% of its sales from PC.
Sure.
So like I just see that and I'm like, is it really worth all that stress to put it onto a console?
Yeah. I've it's not necessarily worth the stress for XBLA. No offense to XBLA, but like you said, it can be pretty difficult. I've heard that from several sources. But like the Nintendo 3DS eShop, that's got some small games on there, and people tell me that, oh yeah, Nintendo just lets you put it on the store as long as you don't do anything sacrilegious. You probably heard about Binding of Isaac and how that went for Edmund McMillan of Team Meat. But other than that, as long as the content meets their kind of weird standards, just put it on there. There's tons of games on eShop that are not good, and it would be great for me if good games like yours were on there. Okay, we've got 15 minutes left. I got to make sure we don't fail anyone who asked us questions. Slow Holmes asked another questions. Yes, another question. What game mechanic do you guys think will have utility as an everyday item? E.g., getting points in the dashboard of your car for using fuel sustainability. Whoa. That question, what did that question mean?
It's gamification, essentially.
Oh, it's gamification, which is fun.
I'm a little iffy on gamification, and I'll tell you why I'm iffy. And some other developers have come out and said why they feel iffy. Basically, gamification is sort of based on Skinner's theories, psychological.
B.F. Skinner?
Yeah, B.F. Skinner.
Yeah.
So he has the whole thing, the Skinner box, right? Expected rewards and randomized rewards and stuff like that. I don't know if I should go into it or not, but basically, a lot of what he's been saying is has been since disproved. But this was like all this research was being done like 50 years ago or so. So like everybody who's grown up now has been like raised under like these are how humans work psychologically. And it's almost the opposite. Like if you are rewarded for doing something, okay, look, I don't know if I want to get into this, but
I do. Do get into it. Just to recap for people, B.F. Skinner, psychologist, came up with these theories for how to condition human beings to do stuff. Classical conditioning, I think, was his. It wasn't operant conditioning.
Yeah, operant conditioning. It's also referred to as pop behaviorism.
Right.
But basically, a lot of what he's saying, like, his theories were basically if you tell somebody do this and you'll get that. Like, read this book and we will give you a free pizza or whatever. Right?
I did that, but they had that at Pizza Hut growing up.
Yep.
I was part of the pizza eating club that read books. It's great. Yeah.
And the thing is, if you are given, like, if something is intrinsically motivating to you, so let's say you love doing paintings, you absolutely love it, but somebody says, I will give you $50 to do this painting, and I'm not sure how they judged the criteria, but they basically said productivity, creativity, happiness all went down when they were offered money.
That's what we were just saying before. We don't want any money because it ties into the survival instinct, which makes things yucky.
And
we want to do things because we want to do them, not because our drives tell us to.
It also completely kills the intrinsic value or the intrinsic motivation that you had to paint. Now, the next painting you do, if you're not getting $50 for it, you're not nearly as compelled to paint because you've been ruined psychologically by being given $50 to paint already, like in the past, and you're like, well, I'm not being given $50 now. It's really weird. The reason it works for some things and for some games is because things that have no intrinsic motivation, like if you have no intrinsic motivation to do it, then it works perfectly. Because you don't care about doing that thing anyway, you're getting more out of it than you would have otherwise. And that's how some games operate, and I won't mention game names, but think about it.
Why not?
I don't want to be controversial here.
Really? Controversy's pretty good, as long as you're being honest and you really mean it. I mean, controversy.
Okay, see, let's go with a game that's not controversial to bash, like Farmville or the Vills. They work entirely on that. They've got barely any actual interesting gameplay. What's interesting and what keeps people hooked is the tiny rewards that you're constantly getting, and that are Zynga's got like army of psychologists ready to like know just how to manipulate somebody just the right way. They do a lot of A/B split testing, which is basically they run two versions of a game for two different people, and they run like there's the A test and the B test, and the A test has like it's selling a hat that's slightly is like a pink color, and the other one is selling a hat that's a blue color, and then they see which sold more, and then they bring that, like, then they mash the two games together and then just sell that one blue hat if the blue hat sold more or whatever. They do a lot of that. A lot of just figuring out how to separate people from their money, and it's shitty.
Yeah. I feel the same way about achievements. People get mad at me for bashing achievements because I really think Microsoft, I don't want to say brainwashed, that's a little strong, but definitely conditioned their fan base to value themselves as Xbox owners through the achievement and gamer score system, and also to value Xbox Live as a service by charging for it and saying it's the gold membership, making you feel like, oh, I got a gold medal for paying for this this membership, other than like the silver medal people. Well, they don't know what they're doing. And all achievements, I know people that have bought games for $60 that they don't like, you know, like golf cart racing, and played it for 60 hours, and they're like, I'm having the worst time, but oh, I'm going to be such a good person when I'm done with this game because my gamer score is going to go up. And I'm like, no, that's the same as watching someone bash their head in a car door and be like, but I'm a good guy now. Look at all the bro, your game.
Uh-oh. Am I still in the group? Conrad?
Oh.
Well, basically, what John was saying is entirely true. There's a lot of arguments online, if you haven't seen them, that basically completely trash Microsoft's achievement system. Yep. So I do I run the show now? Is that how it goes?
All right, so I think we're gonna wrap up. Sorry for the error and the last 10 minutes of the show, but we're gonna. I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah.
His laptop died. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching, and on behalf of John, I'm sure he would say thank you. Tune in next week for the next exciting guest and all of that fun stuff.